In a busy city filled with tall buildings, crowded streets, and rushing people, there lived a man named James. James was 38 years old, but he looked much older. His clothes were torn and dirty. His face showed deep lines of worry and exhaustion. His hands were rough and scarred from years of living on the streets. James was homeless. Every single day, he sat on the same corner near a subway station in downtown Manhattan. He would sit there from morning until night, holding out a small cup, asking people for spare change. Most people walked past him as if he were invisible. Some would drop $1 or some coins without even looking at his face. Very few people would stop and acknowledge him as a human being. James had been living on the streets for almost 12 years. He had become just another face in the crowd of forgotten people. To most passers-by, he was just another homeless man. But James was more than that. He had dreams once. He had a family once. He had worked as a construction worker before an injury left him unable to work. When the medical bills piled up and he lost his apartment, everything fell apart. Slowly, year by year, he lost everything: his job, his home, his dignity, and worst of all, his belief that things could ever change. Every night, James would count the money in his cup. Sometimes he had enough to buy a meal from a street vendor. Sometimes he only had enough for a bottle of water. He would sleep in a cardboard shelter under a highway overpass. The freezing winter nights made his body ache with pain. The scorching summer days left him weak and dehydrated. But the worst pain was not physical. The worst pain lived in his mind. James believed that this was his destiny. He believed that he was worthless. He believed that society had thrown him away and that nothing would ever change. This belief had become a prison stronger than any concrete wall. It kept him trapped in the same spot, doing the same thing, living the same hopeless life, day after day after day. One cold afternoon in October, something unexpected happened. An elderly man came and sat down on the bench right next to where James was sitting on the ground. This was unusual because most people kept their distance from homeless people. The elderly man was dressed simply but neatly. He wore a worn but clean jacket and carried a small backpack. He had gentle eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and a peaceful expression on his weathered face. The old man didn't say anything at first. He just sat there quietly, watching the endless stream of people hurrying past. James felt uncomfortable and confused. He wondered why this stranger was sitting so close to him. After several minutes of silence, the old man turned to James and smiled warmly. He said in a kind voice, "Good afternoon, my friend. How are you doing today?" James was startled. Nobody had called him friend in more years than he could remember. He looked at the old man with suspicion and confusion and replied, "I'm just a homeless guy, sir. Nobody really cares how I'm doing." The old man nodded thoughtfully and said, "I see. You say you're a homeless guy. Tell me something. Is that who you truly are? Or is that simply your current situation?" James didn't understand the question. He responded defensively, "What do you mean? Look at me. I sit here every day begging for money to survive. I sleep under a bridge. I am homeless. That's what I am." The old man's eyes remained kind as he said, "No, my friend. That describes your circumstances. But circumstances are not identity. There's a very important difference between the two." James felt a mix of confusion and irritation rising inside him. He said bitterly, "What difference does it make? I have nothing. I am nothing. The world has made that very clear." The old man looked at him with genuine compassion and said, "Let me share something with you. Have you ever heard of Chris Gardner?" James shook his head. The old man continued, Chris Gardner was a man who lived right here in San Francisco back in the 1980s. He was homeless, just like you are now. He had a young son, and they would sleep in subway bathrooms, homeless shelters, sometimes even on the floor of his office bathroom. He had no money, no home, no support system. People looked at him the same way they look at you now, as if he were invisible, as if he didn't matter. James listened, his interest caught despite himself. The old man went on. But here's what made Chris Gardner different. Even though his circumstances were terrible, even though he was living in the most desperate situation imaginable, he never let his circumstances define his identity. He never said, "I'm homeless, therefore I am worthless." Instead, he said, "I am homeless right now, but I am also a man with potential, with intelligence, with the ability to learn and grow." He kept that mindset, even when he had every reason to give up. The old man's voice became stronger with conviction. Chris Gardner studied incredibly hard. He fought to get into a stockbroker training program, even though he had no money, no home, and no formal education in finance. People laughed at him. They doubted him. But he never doubted himself. His mindset was unshakable. Do you know where Chris Gardner is now? James shook his head slowly, completely absorbed in the story. The old man smiled and said, "He became a multimillionaire. He founded his own brokerage firm. They even made a movie about his life called The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith. But the money wasn't the real success. The real success was that he changed his mindset first, and everything else followed." James sat in stunned silence. Something about this story was touching a place deep inside his heart that had been frozen for years. The old man leaned closer and said softly, "James, you are exactly like Chris Gardner was. You're in a terrible situation right now. I'm not denying that. But your situation is not your identity. You have a choice. You can keep believing that you are nothing, that you are just a homeless man, that this is all you'll ever be. Or you can change your mindset and start seeing yourself differently. Not as a victim, but as a person with potential who is going through a very difficult time." James felt tears beginning to well up in his eyes. His voice cracked as he said, "But how? Chris Gardner was special. I'm not special. I don't have any skills anymore. I barely finished high school. I have no money, no connections, no way out. How am I supposed to change anything?" The old man reached into his backpack and pulled out a small spiral notebook and a pen. He placed them gently in James's hands and said, "These are for you. I want you to try something. It's going to seem simple, maybe even pointless at first. But I promise you, if you do this consistently, it will begin to change everything." James looked down at the notebook, feeling the weight of it in his hands. The old man continued, "Every single evening before you go to sleep, I want you to write down 3 things in this notebook. First, write one thing, anything at all, that you're grateful for that day. It could be something as small as a warm cup of coffee someone gave you, or that the rain stopped, or that you're still alive. Second, write down one thing you learned or noticed that day. Maybe you learned something about yourself, or about other people, or about the world. Third, write down one small action you will take the next day to improve your situation, even just a tiny bit." James protested weakly, "But I don't even write well. My handwriting is terrible, and my spelling—" The old man gently interrupted. "It doesn't matter. Nobody else will read this. This isn't about perfect writing. This is about training your mind. Right now, your mind is trained to see only what's wrong, only what's missing, only the pain and the hopelessness. This practice will slowly retrain your mind to start seeing opportunities, possibilities, and small steps forward. Your mindset is like a muscle. Right now, it's weak and atrophied. But if you exercise it every day, it will grow stronger. James felt something he hadn't felt in over a decade. He felt a tiny flicker of hope. It was small and fragile, but it was there. He looked at the old man and said quietly, "I'll try. I don't know if it will work, but I'll try." The old man stood up from the bench. He placed his hand on James's shoulder with genuine warmth and said, "That's all anyone can ask. Just try, one day at a time. And remember this, James." Chris Gardner spent months sleeping in a bathroom with his son, but he never once thought of himself as just a homeless man. He always saw himself as a stockbroker who was temporarily without a home. Your mindset shapes your reality. Change your mindset, and your reality will eventually follow. That night, huddled in his cardboard shelter with a small flashlight he had found weeks ago, James opened the notebook. His hands were shaking, partly from the cold and partly from emotion. He thought hard about what to write. The first question felt almost impossible. What was he grateful for? His life was miserable. But he remembered the old man's words and forced himself to think. Finally, in shaky handwriting, he wrote, 1. I am grateful that an old man talked to me today like I was a real person. For the second question, he wrote, 2. I learned that maybe my situation doesn't define who I am. For the third, he wrote, 3. Tomorrow I will look at least one person in the eye and say good morning. These seemed like such tiny, insignificant things. But it was a beginning. The next morning, James did exactly what he had written. When a businessman walked past, James looked up, made eye contact and said, "Good morning, sir." The businessman was startled. Most homeless people avoided eye contact. But he stopped, looked at James with surprise and replied, "Good morning to you too." That brief moment of human connection gave James a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. He felt seen. He felt human. That evening, he wrote in his notebook again. 1. I am grateful that someone said good morning back to me. 2. I learned that people will respond to respect with respect. 3. Tomorrow I will help someone if I see them struggling. Day after day, James continued this practice. Some days were incredibly hard. Some days he felt like throwing the notebook away and giving up. But he kept going. After about a week, something started to shift in his awareness. James began noticing things around him that he had been blind to before. He saw a young mother struggling with a stroller on the subway stairs. Without thinking, James got up and helped her carry the stroller up. The woman was initially nervous, but then she saw the kindness in his eyes and thanked him warmly. He saw an elderly man drop his wallet. James picked it up and returned it to him. The man was so grateful that he gave James $20 and shook his hand with genuine respect. These were small actions, but they created something powerful. They made James feel useful again. They made him feel like he had value to offer the world. People started noticing him differently too. They stopped seeing just a homeless man with his hand out. They started seeing a kind person who helped others. The businessman who James had said good morning to that first day started stopping regularly to chat with him. He learned James's name. He began bringing him coffee some mornings. A woman who owned a small bakery nearby noticed James helping an elderly customer with her bags. She started giving him leftover bread and pastries at the end of each day. 6 weeks after meeting the old man, the owner of a small moving company was walking past James's corner. He had noticed James several times over the past weeks, always helping people, always polite and respectful. The owner, whose name was Marcus, stopped and spoke to James. He said, "I've been watching you. You seem like a decent, hard-working guy who's hit some bad luck. I need someone to help with moving jobs, just basic stuff like carrying boxes and furniture. It's hard physical work and the pay isn't great, but it's honest work. Are you interested?" James couldn't believe what he was hearing. His eyes filled with tears. His voice trembled as he said, "Yes, sir. Absolutely yes. I'll work harder than anyone you've ever hired. I promise you that." Marcus smiled and said, "I believe you. Come by my shop tomorrow morning at 7. We'll get you started." That night, James wrote in his notebook with tears streaming down his face. 1. I am grateful that I got offered a job today. 2. I learned that when you change how you see yourself, others start to see you differently too. 3. Tomorrow I will show up early and work harder than I've ever worked in my life. James showed up at 6:30 a.m. the next morning. He worked with such dedication and determination that Marcus was impressed. It wasn't easy. James's body ached from years of malnutrition and sleeping on concrete. But he pushed through the pain. Marcus saw his work ethic and his attitude. After 2 weeks, Marcus offered James a permanent position and helped him get into a homeless shelter that had individual rooms. It wasn't much, but it was a roof over his head and a bed to sleep in. For the first time in 12 years, James had shelter and steady income. 3 months later, James had saved enough money to rent a small room in a shared apartment. It was tiny and the neighborhood wasn't great, but to James it felt like a palace. He kept the notebook with him every single day. His gratitude continued to grow. His learning continued to expand. His actions became bolder and more ambitious. He enrolled in free GED classes at the public library. He started planning for a future he had thought was impossible. One Saturday afternoon, James was eating lunch at a small diner when someone sat down across from him. He looked up and his heart nearly stopped. It was the old man. James couldn't control his emotions. He stood up, tears streaming down his face, and said, "You came back. You saved my life. I don't even know your name, but you changed everything for me." The old man smiled with deep warmth and said, "My name is Robert. But I didn't save your life, James. You saved your own life. I just reminded you of something you had forgotten, that your circumstances don't define your identity. You did all the hard work. You changed your mindset. You took action. That was all you." They sat together for 2 hours. James told Robert everything that had happened since that October afternoon when they first met. Robert listened with pride and joy evident on his face. Before they parted ways, Robert said something James would never forget. "James, do you remember the story I told you about Chris Gardner?" James nodded. Robert continued, "What I didn't tell you is that Chris Gardner once said something very powerful. He said, 'The world is your oyster. It's up to you to find the pearls.' Your circumstances tried to convince you that you were worthless, that you were just a homeless man with no future. But you chose to change your mindset. You chose to start looking for the pearls, and you found them." Robert stood up to leave. He shook James's hand firmly and said, "Keep that notebook forever. Keep writing in it. Keep growing. And someday, when you see someone else who's lost and hopeless, sit down next to them and remind them of what you now know. Remind them that they are not their circumstances. Remind them that mindset changes everything." James promised he would. He kept that notebook for the rest of his life, and he did exactly what Robert asked. Whenever he saw someone struggling and hopeless, he would sit with them, share his story, and remind them that change is always possible when you start with changing your mind. Your circumstances, no matter how difficult, do not define who you are. Chris Gardner slept in subway bathrooms and became a multi-millionaire. James lived on the streets for 12 years and rebuilt his life. If they could change their mindset and transform their lives, so can you. If this story inspired you, give it a like and share it with someone who needs hope today. Subscribe to Wordy Lessons for more powerful true stories that teach English and life-changing lessons at the same time. Thank you for watching. See you in the next story. Until then, remember, you are not your circumstances. You are what you choose to become. Change your mindset and watch your life transform.